Okay, Shavua Tov. Okay, sorry I'm running a minute late here, but okay. I'm really sorry because we have a lot to cover. And I want to finish. This is perhaps the longest psalm we've ever done, actually. I'm not sure. 104 is about the same length, maybe. And that took us 3 weeks. I hope we can do this in 3 weeks so we can finish it before Purim. So this poem, and you're going to see why in just while we go through the first line, which has a lot to unpack. You're going to see why this is the poem that it is the custom of the Vilna Gaon to say on Purim. This is the Purim Psalm for the day. So that means for us in Yerushalayim, we would say it both, we would say it on Friday, but a lot of people say it Thursday and Friday. We have Purim on Friday. The Sephardic minhag in many Sephardic communities is to say this poem 3 days. They say it on Tanis Esther and both days of Purim, even if they're not celebrating Purim. In other words, they'll say it on, Tanis Esther, Ta'anit Esther, and then they'll say it on their Purim and the other day of Purim, whatever that might be. And that's a custom in many Sephardic communities, especially North Africa. It may be a little bit different, Persia, Iran, Chalabi, but especially North Africa, they say it 3 days, this poem. And so we have to look at the first line to truly understand. You have to see the whole poem, which is going to take us a while. But the beginning of understanding why this is the Purim Psalm is in the first line. And Lamanatseach means it's musical for the conductor usually, or the head of the kapellmeister, the head of the orchestra. Al Ayelet HaShachar. And then Mizmor David, it's a psalm either about King David or for King David. Okay, what is Ayelet HaShachar? Probably the literal meaning of it is it was an instrument. It was an instrument like a horn of some sort. It was probably an instrument that was blown on rather than a lyre or a harp or anything like that. And there's an opinion that it was an instrument that started off very low and went very high. And was supposed to, by going through those scales, recreate the dawn. That the dawn begins with darkness and then has this crescendo of light. So Ayelet HaShachar, according to almost everybody, is a reference to the dawn, okay? And some people say Ayelet HaShachar, meaning the dawn, is because it's a reference to the morning star, which is Venus, is the morning star. Okay, having said all of that, the English word star comes from what word? What's the source, the root of our English word star? And we know what language it came from? Not Latin, not Greek. Persian. And star comes from the goddess Ishtar. So spelled in English, Ishtar. In Hebrew, we pronounce Ishtar Esther. So Esther is probably related to the name Ishtar. How the Persians said it, I don't know. I'm just telling you how we say it in English, which came from the Greek. So it went into Greek. The Greek historians told us about it, and it came into English as Ishtar, but in Hebrew, it's Esther. It's Esther, which some people, or many people say is a reference to Queen Esther. What does King David have to do with Queen Esther? Okay, the historical background of the poem. Probably either David wrote it himself or people wrote it for him when David had his biggest life crisis, which was the rebellion of his son Avshalom. And when his son rebelled and he had to run away, He had to go from being a king to being a fugitive overnight, and it was very difficult for him. And that experience is going to be described in the first half of the poem. But there's a famous story. While he was running away from Avshalom, from Yerushalayim, from Eretz Israel, to cross the Jordan, he bumps into a fortress. And in this fortress, in the area of Moab, is an enemy who hated him because of defeating King Saul. And that enemy's name was Shimei ben Gera. And Shimei ben Gera comes to the ramparts of this fortress and starts yelling terrible things at David HaMelech because he hates him. He defeated the head of his family, King Saul, Shaul HaMelech. And at that point, all of the people with King David, he had an entourage, they said, let's go and kill him. And King David, now, what's the pshat? I don't know the pshat. He may have been depressed. At one point, he seems to say to the people around him, I agree with all the terrible things he said about me. I'm that person. He feels he's in depression, whether it's clinical depression, but he's really in a bad way. And he says, don't touch Shimei ben Gera. And they go on, camp someplace else. Eventually, more people come to him, and he's able to return and get back the kingdom. Who is Shimei ben Gera in the future of the Jewish people? In Shushan Habira, there was Ish Yehudi named Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimei ben Kish. So what happens is Shimei is a direct descendant, ancestor of Mordechai. And through that entire Binyamin, Ish Yemini comes from the tribe of Benjamin. So through that Binyamin connection, we have Mordechai because David HaMelech didn't kill Shimei ben Gera, sorry. So why didn't he do it? So we say he didn't do it because he was depressed, but maybe he didn't do it because, according to the Midrash, he saw Baruch HaKodesh, this person has a very important role to play in the destiny of our people. So the poem is written by King David, probably, or for King David with his cooperation. Not sure what Lid David means, okay? But whatever way it means, it's written talking about King David's experience, but also talking about the experience of the Jews in Persia. How many years later? So we're talking about, this is around 1000 BCE, and the poem story is in the late 400s, so 600 years and more later. He's predicting something or dealing with something that's 600 years in the future. Why is this poem for both King David and for Purim? And I hope in 10 minutes I don't confuse you too much, because we go back and forth between this line refers to King David, this line refers to the story of the Jews in Persia. We're gonna go back and forth like that throughout the poem. But the most important thing to know about the poem is it splits nicely into two parts. If you turn the backside for just a minute, after verse 22, no way we're going to get there today. Hopefully we'll get there next week. I put the block there. That's where the poem switches tone. The first half of the poem is very, very much by a person who feels depressed, who feels very much isolated, feels very much neglected by Hashem. The second half of the poem is praise of Hashem, apparently after the salvation takes place. So after verse 22 is either the return to power of King David or Nahafochu, the change in the story of the Jews in Persia. They both fit in very beautifully, okay? They both fit in very beautifully. And the first half of the poem also splits into two. The first half of it is talking about how lowly the author's position is. And that can describe the position of the Jews in Persia, or could describe the position of King David. And then the second half of the first part talks about a regular old prayer to Hashem for help in his difficulty, or her difficulty, if it's talking about Queen Esther. So the poem has two parts, but the first part splits up very nicely into two different parts. I hope we can get through at least that first half of the first part today. And we're going to, as I said, apply it to both the situation of David HaMelech in his flight from his rebellious son, and also for the Jews in Persia. And it begins with an unbelievably famous verse. It's not the most important verse in the poem, I don't think. You'll see that in a few minutes, but it's really the most famous verse in the poem, Keli, Keli, lama azavtani. And of course, we have this, we have this in Yiddish songs, when Jews felt, really depressed in Europe, okay? We have it in Aramaic, of course, in the Christian Bible, not the New Testament, quite often referred to as the wrong testament. But okay, so this is what Yeshu, their, leader says while being crucified, according to their tradition. Okay, it's a very powerful verse. My God, why have you abandoned me? Okay, and I think abandoned is the best translation, but you can see, other things, neglected, departed from, but I think abandoned. I'm sorry? Forsaken is the way it's quite often done. I think that's King James, is forsaken. I like abandoned, but that doesn't make a difference. But why the repetition of Keli, Keli? Simple pshat is just out of the sense of sadness and depression. Saying, oh my God. We repeat ourselves like that. So it could be just teaching us of the terrible state of mind that the person is in at that moment. However, there's a parish on Tehillim done by the famous student of the Ari in Tzfat. And most of the writings of the Ari we have from his fabulous student, Rabbi Chaim Vital. The Ari himself wrote down almost nothing, so almost everything that we have from the Ari was written by his student, but his student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, wrote more stuff, after his Rebbe died, and he lived on for many, many years. Remember, the Ari died very young. He was 38 when he passed away. Can you imagine if they had that custom that you can't learn Zohar, can't learn Kabbalah till you're 40 in those days? I mean, we'd really be in trouble. Because he's our greatest modern, or the beginning of modern time source for Kabbalistic ideas. So his great student, Chaim Vital, wrote a commentary on Tehillim, and it was lost for many, many years, and it was found in the library, a manuscript form. We had parts of it, but we didn't have the entire thing. But a manuscript form of it was found in the library of the Gira Rebbe at the beginning of the 20th century. And this include parts that had been lost for all this time, that the sect of Gur, the Hasidim, had been collecting manuscripts. Rather, Lubavitch also found in the libraries of the Rebbes many other books that had been lost to other people. And the Lubavitch is still trying to get the rest of the library out of Russia because the communists had confiscated it, and they're still, we now have use of it, but it's still in the possession of the Russian Federation. But okay, so his parish is written in the same book with the parish of the Sfat Emet, who's of course from the Rebbe of Gur. They put them together, and it's just a great book. But anyways, he says something interesting. he says this is really talking about the 13 midot, the 13 attributes of Hashem. How did 13 attributes of Hashem begin? Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke, Kale. And so what he said was, when you come before God and you feel that you don't necessarily have any recognizable sins, we all have sins, but you don't have anything, that's like front and center, then you begin the 13 attributes with Yud Ke Vav Ke. That's our relationship with God when we haven't sinned. But if we've sinned, the way you begin the 13 attributes is Keli. And then you go on from there, because Kale is related to Elokim, which is the God of justice. So you're referring to God as the judge when you say Keli. And so that this is a form of repeating it, similar to Yud Ke Vav Ke at the beginning of the 13 attributes. And so King David, is recognizing his own sins at this point. And that's why he says, Keli, why have you forsaken me? And that's going to be the theme at the first part, that the Jews used to have this really tight relationship with God. However, over the years, we have sadly lost it. And we're going to see, how that plays out in this really difficult first part of the poem. And he says at the end of the verse, Rachok mishuati divrei sha'agati, distant from your salvation, from your help, are the words of my, now sha'agati can mean my roar or my groan, okay? It can mean, in that case, my calling out for help, my prayer. And so this can mean two things. It can mean a lot of things, but I'm going to give two interpretations. One is that he's just saying that I don't feel, when I pray, my previous closeness to you. Remember, Yeshua really means connection to Hashem. We translate it as salvation and help and saving, but it really means the sense of connectedness to God. So he says, when I cry out, when I roar, maybe he's a king, so kings are like lions who roar. When I roar, I just don't feel the former connection, which is a fine interpretation. And I think it's pshat. However, I saw in the Radak, Rabbi David Kimchi says something else. He says, I'm crying out for things, and I don't feel that what I'm crying for is what you, God, are expecting from me. I can't get saved. I can't get salvation. I can't get back connected to you, because what I'm asking for and what you are expecting from me aren't the same thing. Distant from the things that will distant from things that will save me are what I'm actually praying for. And so what King David is saying, according to this interpretation, I'm trying to find the right formula. Be careful what you pray for, because you should only pray for the things that you really need. And so what David HaMelech is feeling at this moment, I don't even know what to say. I feel like I've so lost touch with you, God, that I have no idea what I should even be including in my prayers. I feel like it's just not clicking at all. I'm sure all of us have felt this on occasion when we've davened. There are times when, Baruch Hashem, we feel like, oh, wow, that was really cool. There are other times when we feel, nothing really happened, and we always assume it's us, of course, but the feeling is, Dean Davis, nothing's happening, because I just don't feel that right now we're on the same wavelength. Remember the greatest line, my favorite line, from Ashrei isn't open up your hand and give me food. My favorite is Ratzon Yerev Yaseh et Shavatam Yishma V'Yoshiyein. The word for prayer, shavatam, is the same word for yoshiem, for the response to the prayer. Because prayers are most efficacious when we are on the same wavelength with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When there's this resonance, harmonic resonance between us and Hashem. And right now, David HaMelech's prayers sound like they're out of key. And that's what he's saying at the end of this line. And that's almost as sad as the first part. He feels like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is distant, but he feels like it's like I lost HaKadosh Baruch Hu's number. I don't know how to reestablish the contact. And that's almost as sad. That's almost as sad. It goes on. Elokai ekra yomam lo taneh. I cry out to you, my God, during the daytime, and I don't feel there's a response. Remember, the most important thing you want to feel when you pray is that a HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered the phone. In other words, that there is somebody at the other end of the line when you pray. I don't feel that way right now. Forget about whether or not I got what I asked for. I don't even feel like there's anything on the other side listening. Velila, I cry at night. Velo dumia li. And my tears, my cries at night, my prayers at night do not in any way calm me down. I feel nothing that is in any way calming. What you want, we all know what you need for a good night's sleep. You have to be calm. When you're agitated, when you're upset, you can't sleep. So I'm sure David HaMelech here is not able to sleep bichlal, because when his cries to Hashem at night are not in any way dumia, soothing, calming, quiet me down. Dumb means to be, it's funny sort of. On English, we say, oh, he was deaf and dumb. They can't speak. In modern Hebrew, dumb, to a certain extent, means the same thing. Amod dumb, right? Imdi dumb. Stand at attention, quietly, okay? Stand, like you're a statue. So it's funny how the words sort of have, they overlap with each other. And now, verse Daled for me is perhaps the most important pasuk in the psalm. I hope you recognize it. We say it in Uvolatzion every morning, every day, and Shabbos it's in the afternoon. There are actually those who say that the reason that we say Uvolatzion after the reading of the Megillah on Purim night is so that we can say this line. And we say this line, V'atah kadosh yishet Yisrael v'kara zeh el zeh v'amar, kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. When we quote the line from Yeshayahu, when Yeshayahu saw the angels praising Hashem with kadosh, 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 so we try to mimic the behavior of the angels in heaven. So we say, Kadosh, 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 right? In our Kedusha, we try to praise the sanctity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? And we're saying HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Kadosh, very distant from us. Kadosh means, I know we translate as holy, but Kadosh means, according to Rabbi Soloveitchik, the word means transcendent. The word means distant, because there is in all religion this concept, this paradox, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is both Kadosh, but also Melo Kol Haaretz Kavodo, is filling the entirety of the universe, is immanent, is near us. God is both Kadosh, transcendent, and Melo Kol Haaretz fills the whole world around us, is immanent, is nearby. Hashem is distant, yet also nearby. So we say, God, you are holy. But not only are you holy, distant, transcendent, but you, Yoshev Tehilot Yisrael. Do you know what your throne that we can sense in this world is? Your throne is the praises of the Jewish nation. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only in this world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can only be perceived in this world because the Jews are praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever presence Hashem has in this world is because of the efforts of the Jewish people. And this is how the Sfat Emet expresses it. Ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy and Blessed He, Rachok Mikol Rachok. He is the most distant of all distant things. That's what Kadosh means. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Way out there, tremendously distant from us. The Efshar Lahasigo. And it's impossible for us to in any way be masig, to in any way intuit, to in any way sense HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so far away that we don't have any antenna that can pick up the broadcasts that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is makrin, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is transmitting. We're just too far away to in any way sense any connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay? However, Rak al Yedei Pu'ulatav, the only way that you can possibly get through to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is through HaKadosh Baruch Hu's actions, because Mi Bara Eles, like Yishayahu says, who created these? Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we can start to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by perceiving Hashem through Bri'ah, through this world, through the creation. Say, wow, that sunrise, remember, Shaka is so beautiful because HaKadosh Baruch Hu created it, okay? And that's, we can start to connect. And then he goes on to say, Zot ma'alat b'nei Yisrael, asher yesh lem dveikut b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the essence of the Jewish nation. Because we have dveikut, we have connection, okay, glue, if you will. We have this ability to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Gam b'bechina harichuk, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so far away. And so it is the tehilot, the praises of the Jewish nation that makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu perceivable in this realm. David HaMelech is saying there's something very ironic going on here. And this is a tragic irony. The only way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is perceived in this world is through us. And yet I, right now, have no connection. I, who have written all of these Tehillim, who wrote better Tehillot LaHaKadosh Baruch Hu than David HaMelech? And right now, I, like we said before, I call out and there's no answer. I am totally bereft of my connection with you. So the irony of Pasuk Daled is extremely heavy on David HaMelech, because we are supposed to be the ones who can contact you. Your throne rests in this realm on the praises of the Jewish nation. You're only here because of us. By the way, other commentaries say that this is a reference to the Merkava, to the chariot reference in the first chapter of Ezekiel, that Yechezkel in Galut is noticing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has this throne which moves around, and it moves around in response to the Jews. So in other words, the sanctity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be accessed in this world through the Jewish nation. By the way, that image, can't get into philosophy here, but that image that Yechezkel saw in Galut is extremely important, because that image allowed us to survive the Galut, because we believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu traveled with us. That's why that image, the first chapter of Yechezkel, is very difficult, but extremely important. Every other exiled people in history disappeared. The only reason that we didn't is because the Merkava, the Kisei HaKavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God's throne, traveled with us. We kept contact with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So some people say the Yoshev, God sitting, is a reference to that Kisei HaKavod, that throne of glory of Yechezkel that was sensed by Jews even in Galut. And again, if that's what it means, then it's again a reference not necessarily King David, but to Esther and the Purim story, who were in Galut. David HaMelech was semi-Galut. He was in the Transjordan, which is also part of Eretz Yisrael. I don't know, can I say that during the election season? That this Transjordan is also part of, has Kedushas Eretz Yisrael? I don't know, okay. I don't know, that may be misinterpreted, so I have to be careful. Okay, but he's referencing, and in his agony, he's pointing out the dichotomy of the normal situation between the Jewish nation and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We are the lifeline to Hashem, but yet I can't contact you. And he goes through the historical relationship. B'cha batchu avotenu. In you, Hashem, our ancestors, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe Rabbeinu, Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar, through you, in you, our nation always had, our ancestors always had tremendous bitachon, faith. But who? We had faith in you, utifaltemo. We had faith in you and you saved us, okay? You allowed us to escape. A palit, the basis of that word, well, really, palat means a drop, right? But it means something that escaped, got through. A palit is a refugee. We survived because of our faith in you. At this point, who's David HaMelech talking to? I mean, yes, Hashem, but who else? Himself. He's trying to get himself back on track. He's trying to remind himself that it's our faith in you which has gotten us through all of the terrible times that a nation has found themselves in. However the grammar is right there. I don't know. But it's very important that I access this. I'm trying. And he goes on in verse 8. Elecha za'aku. To you they za'ak. Za'ak, of course, is onomatopoeia. Okay? Za'ak. It's better when the Yemenites do it than, because they really pronounce that. Za'ak. It's to you that they cried. Za'ak. Okay? Okay. Others do it better than me. V'nimlatu. And the same, nimlatu is really connected to the same word as palat and malat, to get through. We survived. Okay? Escaped, Escaped, yeah. B'cha batchu v'lo boshu. We had faith in you and you never let us down. Okay? B'cha batchu, in you, capital Y, they had faith, velo boshu, and you never. Now, you're going to see translations that say shame, embarrassed. I don't think that's pshat. Amos Chacham, the great professor of biblical literature from Hebrew University, who died a few years ago. By the way, a little interesting, he was the first winner of the Bible contest in Eretz Yisrael. When they started having Bible contests after Hakamat Medina, Amos Chacham won the first Bible contest. And he became professor both in religious circles, but also at Hebrew University. He was personally religious, but he says the word busha in biblical Hebrew doesn't mean embarrassment, like we usually, like in rabbinic Hebrew, busha uklima. That's rabbinic Hebrew. It means embarrassment. He said it means Achsava, disappointment. Disappointment.
But the Yiddish says Moshe.
I know. And he says that was a later development of the language, and it became true in Chazal, and then got used that way in later Jewish literature. But he says it means disappointment. And it fits in so many places to say disappointment, and it fits in beautifully here. In other words, we cried to you and you saved us. We had faith in you, or they, my ancestors, had faith in you, and you never let them down. Okay, I think that worked. I think that's better than the more popular, and they were not ashamed. Okay, they were not embarrassed. But I think it works better. You never let them down. You never let them down. But I can't reestablish the connection, which brings us to the very powerful verse, Zion. Va'anochi tola'at. I'm a worm. I'm not one of them. Velo ish. Ish, by the way, is the term that's used when someone's important, okay? We usually say B'nai Adam is like regular people. Ish Chashuv is a major personality, a powerful personality. I'm a worm and not a man. I cannot access this because I have gone to the dark side of human experience. The Gemara talks about at great length that humans have three things in common with animals, three things that pull us down, and we have three things in common with angels that raise us up. And by the way, this was a drasha I did many years ago. I don't know if you remember on Yom Kippur. So I made a triangle out of the three things that raise us up, and a triangle of three things that pull us down. And when you put them together, that's the Magen David. Because it's a constant reminder of the three things pulling us down and the three things raising us up. And David HaMelech right now feels he's only being pulled down to the base side of humanity, the animal side of our reality, of our existence. And therefore he can't access what his ancestors did. I am nothing but a worm. And it's so ironic the way it begins this line. How do you usually refer to yourself? Ani. When do you use Anochi? It's when you're saying I'm somebody. Anochi means I'm something substantial. Okay? And by the way, there's a Hasidic story about a Chassid's knocking on the door, and the Rebbe asks, "Who is it?" And the Chassid answers, "Anochi." And the Rebbe answers, "No, there's only one Anochi in the universe, and that's Anochi Hashem Elokecha." Right? I'm the Lord your God Asher Hotziticha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Who are you to say I'm an Anochi? But here, David HaMelech is saying, I'm an Anochi, and it's ironic in its use. Me am nothing but a worm. I used to be somebody. I'm a has-been. Okay? It's a very powerful statement. By the way, the Rav said something, I don't know if it's true grammatically, but maybe I should talk to somebody who knows a powerful Hebrew grammar. The Rav used to say the difference between Anochi and Ani is, in a sentence, usually the most important word in a sentence is the verb. So you're saying, Ani holech, I'm going, I'm walking, right? When you say Anochi holech, you're switching it and saying the most important thing in the sentence is the fact that I'm the one who's walking. So now the answer to what you're doing is, I'm walking, that's just Ani. The answer to who is it that's walking over there is Anochi holech. Because there the emphasis on, it's the me, I'm the me who's doing it. And so, according to Rabbi Soloveitchik, that's I don't know if modern, philologists buy that position, but and therefore the Rav would read this verse like this: the one who's telling you that they are, in the words of the in the words of Navardic. The one who's telling you I'm a Gornish, right? I'm a nothing, is me. Me, who used to be somebody. I'm telling you, I'm the one who's a Gornish. Nobody else. I'm not making this claim for anybody else but me. It's the emphasis on I'm the one making this claim, rather than the more popular pshat, which is, ironic, which is I usually mean somebody important, and in this case, I'm not. Anochi tolat, I'm a worm and not a man. That's why I can't access what I got from my ancestors. I used to feel I could access that contact to Hashem, but right now I can't. Cherpat Adam u'bizoi am. I am denigrated by other humans, and I am bazoi. What's a good translation of bazoi? I am
Despised.
mocked. Oh, despised. Okay, I'm despised or mocked by nations. In other words, both individually and collectively, I'm made fun of. I'm made fun of when there's a group of people, and I'm made fun of when there's just one guy, excuse me, talking to me alone. Who, by the way, the Meforshim say who's the one guy was Shimi ben Gera. That there was a person, an individual that embarrassed him, and that individual embarrassed him was Shimi ben Gera, which of course feeds into the historical background of the. But then when there's a group of people, they also cut me down. I have both individually or interpersonally am put down, and on the national scale, on the grand scale, am as well, embarrassed and denigrated and despised. It goes on. I mean, it's really tough. Really, the beginning is probably really, really difficult. Gesundheit. Call ro'ai, anyone who sees me. Yal ego li, just makes fun of me, mocks me, denigrates me. La'ag, I'm just an embarrassment. Just Yaftiru bisafa yaniu rosh. They dismiss me with their language and with their nods of their heads. Everything about the way people address me is a put down, whether it's in words or body language. Now, he's somebody who knows body language because a few days earlier, he was a king sitting on a throne in Jerusalem. And how did people come before him? They bowed, right? Now, I look at that same body language and it's dismissive. Both the way people talk to me and the way people act in front of me is totally dismissive of everything that I stand for. This is really, really very powerful stuff. Tet. Gol el Hashem yifaltehu, yatzilehu ki chafetz bo. One who, so I'm going to say moves towards Hashem, okay? People that make this effort of moving towards Hashem, literally means roll, okay? But people that move to Hashem, make that move toward the Kadosh Baruch Hu, what happens? Yifaltehu, they get saved. Yatzilehu kol chofetz bo. God saves. Now Yifaltehu and Yitzalehu are talking not about Yeshua. This is physical salvation. They are physically saved. Okay? Yatzilehu, all those. Yeah, no, but it means they're saved. They make it through. They get out of the difficulty. They're refugees. They become saved from the danger that confronts them. That's we are Sherita Pleta. The Jewish nation considered the remnant of those who survived. And we talked about after World War II, the Plitim, the survivors. We translate survivors, but it means refugees, those who literally ooze through the tiny cracks that they could get through. But so he's going back to, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you help those too. Now comes a fascinating, well, let's do Pshat, but then there's a fascinating drasha on these next two verses. Ki ata gochi mibaten, because you brought me through from the beginning of my life when I came out of the womb. Mavtichi al shedei imi. You were my protection, my security, even when I was still at my mother's breast, while I was still nursing. I'm going to do the two lines together, then we're going to come back and understand them in a new way. Alecha hashlachti meirachem. You threw me out. You pulled me out. You threw me through the womb, the birth canal, okay? Mavtichi, mi betani, me from the belly, from the womb of my mother, you have been my God. Okay. What's this talking about? Now on a pshat level, he means until this point, throughout my life, from the earliest memories that I can remember, I had faith in you. By the way, there's a midrash that says that David HaMelech said a bracha on his mother's milk based on this pasuk. Okay, it's an interesting midrash. But on the pshat level, it means from my earliest recollections, I always had tremendous faith in you, and you never let me down. And then it's going to change. Starting the next verse, we're going to start the prayer of King David to be saved from his enemies. That's the change, okay? That's taking place right after these two verses. The Midrash says these two psukim are not talking about King David. They're talking about Esther. Esther's mother died, right? She was an orphan from her mother and her father, and she was raised by Mordechai. When did her mother die? At birth. According to the Midrash on this pasuk, this is a reference to the life of Queen Esther, who had to be nursed by somebody else, and who throughout her life relied on HaKadosh Baruch Hu because she didn't have a mother. And look, is there any proof to the fact that her mother died at such an early age? No. I mean, we can see from the Megillah in the second chapter, it's clear that she, at a quite early age, she had to be adopted. In other words, by time she was, before she was able to take care of herself, Mordechai had to adopt her. Omein is the language of adoption from the Megillah. So we see that at a very early age. How early, we don't know. But again, through Ruach HaKodesh, the Midrash says that David HaMelech saw what was going to happen with Esther. And so his prayer is including the prayer that Esther could recite when it was her time to feel bereft from HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Purim story. It's an is it true? Obviously, I can't vouch for it, but it's a fascinating approach that fits in that the prayers that David HaMelech are writing work not only for him, but would work for the situation of the Jews in the Purim story, which of course means that these same prayers work for us many times in our desperate exiles. Whether we're talking about the Holocaust or we're talking about just so many terrible exiles that we Jews have survived, all of this works. All of this works. That we only squeaked through. And of course, the words for squeaked through is pleta, milita, are words for making it through under extremely difficult circumstances, which of course, David HaMelech in Ruach HaKodesh is not only describing his own situation, but that of Esther, Hamalka, but also that of the Jews in so many exiles. The thing to remember when you read Megillat Esther is really written for Jews in exile. And when you read it, you have to take everything in it and reapply it to the circumstances that Jews found themselves in throughout history. In other words, you take out Haman and you plug in whoever was, that terrible oppressor of the Jewish nation. Whether you're going to say, Emperor Hadrian, you're going to say, Torquemada, you're going to say Khmelnytsky, you're going to say Hitler. It doesn't make any difference. You continually are plugging in, that's Haman. And of course, based on that, Rabbi Soloveitchik said he's basing it on his grandfather's interpretation of the Rambam, that Amalek is not an ethnicity. Amalek is an ideology, and the ideology is hatred of the Jews. And so, so in other words, it's very important that we take the words of David HaMelech and of course the words of Esther and Mordechai in the Megillah, and we reapply it over and over again to our circumstances. Which is why, by the way, when historians look at the Megillah and they have trouble pinpointing the details, I think that was done on purpose. I think in the authorship of the Megillah, they wanted it to be generic because the authors, Mordechai, Esther, in Ruach HaKodesh, understood that we were going to need this. There are only two major messages that you need in Galut. Okay? The first one was Pasuk Daled. Pasuk Daled, that we have a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu no matter where we are. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes house calls to the Jewish people wherever we are. That's what Yechezkel was teaching us with the vision of the Merkavah. Okay? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us no matter where we are. And that's why we're the only nation who has survived Galut. Right? Fascinating, very, very quickly. When in the 90s, the Dalai Lama was starting to despair for the future of his sect because he had been in exile since the 50s. It was 40 years. So it was like, getting into the second generation time, and he couldn't hold his people together. That's when he made his first trip to Eretz Yisrael in the mid-90s. And he made the trip because someone had told him. Sadly, a lot of Jews went to, the Dalai Lama in those days. What are you going to do? Okay, but one of the Jews told him, well, if you want to learn how to survive in exile, you got to go to Eretz Yisrael. You have to talk to the Jews because only the Jews know how to survive in exile. Okay, I don't know if I don't think what we do works for anybody else because HaKadosh Baruch Hu only made these promises to us. So, but number one, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us in exile, and that's hinted at in Pasuk Daled, Atah Kadosh, that we, Yoshev Tilos, that you're with us in exile, that our praises bring you with us no matter where we go. And the other message of the exile is HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to help us through. It's going to be hard. The survival is going to be pleitah. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to pull us through whatever the difficulties are. And that leaves us with the last way of looking at verses Yud and Yud Aleph, which I think is a beautiful drasha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu in exile is also our mother who is birthing us. We are remaking ourselves all over the place in exile to survive. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets us through that difficult rebirth. And that's extremely important because, we've lived so much of our history, outside of our homeland, that we just needed all of this extremely important advice and encouragement to survive. And we've got it all in this poem of David HaMelech. And we can understand why. The Vilna Gaon wants us to recite this on Purim, and the Sfardim also. We want to recite this on Purim because we need this reminder. Even here in Eretz Yisrael, we need these reminders because the journey isn't over yet. Bezrat Hashem soon, but it's not over yet. Okay, Bezrat Hashem will continue next week.